Geraldo, please let Chair Lee know we are ready to begin.
Chair Lee, we are ready to begin.
Okay, thank you. Good morning and welcome to the October 14, 2022 regular meetings of the San Francisco Ethics Commission. Our minutes will reflect that this hybrid meeting is being held pursuant to the 45th Supplement to Mayoral Proclamation declaring the existence of a local emergency dated February 25, 2020, and is being held subject to the conditions of that proclamation. Today's meeting is being live cablecast on SFGov TV2 and streamed live online on sfgovtv.org/ethicslive. For public comment, members of the public may attend in person or may participate by phone or the WebEx platform as explained in our agenda document. Mr. Moderator, please explain how the remote public comment will be handled today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public comment will be available on each item on this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. For those attending in person, opportunities to speak during the public comment period will be made available in room 400, City Hall. For those attending remotely, opportunities to speak during the public comment period are also being provided via phone call by calling 1-415-655-0001. Again, the phone number is 1-415-655-0001. Access code is 24949776913. Again, the access code is 24949776913, followed by the pound sign. Then press pound again to join as an attendee. For callers, you will hear a beep when you are connected to the meeting. You will be automatically muted and in listening mode only. When your item of interest comes up, dial *3 to raise your hand and to be added to the public comment line. You will then hear you have raised your hand to ask a question. Please wait until the host calls on you. The line will be silent as you wait your turn to speak. Ensure you are in a quiet location. Before you speak, mute the sound of any equipment around you, including television, radio, or computer. It is especially important that you mute your computer if you are watching via the web link to prevent feedback and echo when you speak. When the system message says your line has been unmuted, this is your turn to speak. You will hear staff say, "Welcome, caller." We encourage you to state your name clearly. As soon as you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you change your mind and wish to withdraw yourself from the public comment line, press *3 again. You will hear the system say, "You have lowered your hand." Once your 3 minutes has expired, staff will thank you and mute you. You will hear your line has been muted. Attendees who wish to speak during other public comment periods may stay on the line and listen for the next public comment opportunity and should raise their hands to enter that public comment line by pressing *3 when their next item of interest comes up. Public comment may also be submitted in writing and will be shared with the Commission after this meeting has concluded, and it will be included as part of the official meeting file. Written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Once again, written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Madam Chair?
Okay. Thank you, Moderator. And now I call the meeting to order. Agenda item number 1, which is roll call, please.
Commissioners, please verbally indicate your presence by saying aye after your name is called. Commissioner Bush?
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang?
Aye.
Commissioner Finliv?
Aye.
Chair Lee?
Present.
Chair Lee, with 4 members present and accounted for, you have a quorum.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Romano has an excused absence and Commissioner Bush is participating remotely. And I also want to add today is the first meeting that we have our new Deputy City Attorney, Mr. Brad Rossi, who will be joining us. And thank you very much for keeping us out of legal trouble while we're here. So let's go to agenda item number 2, which is general public comment. We have one speaker on site. So let's hear from our speaker first.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Charles Marsteller, back from the last meeting in August. I thought I would read the following statement because I have 3 minutes. I'm going to immediately begin. I say, immediately after the last meeting of the SF Ethics Commission on August 12th, I called Robert Stern, who authored the method used in San Francisco to amend voter-passed measures, along with many other things. Bob confirmed his strong belief that, like the high standards required to amend the U.S. Constitution, our ability to amend voter-passed measures should be done only by supermajority votes and require that the amendments further the purposes of the Act. This has been the practice followed until this year when the sponsors of Prop E reduced the amendment vote by the SF Ethics Commission from a super to a simple majority vote. I was surprised to learn in August that this was done at the initiative of the nonprofit lobbyist who insisted upon the point, and they are the true authors of the amendments submitted by the mayor and Mr. Peskin, the supervisor at the board. Were you aware that that when you were asked to rewrite Prop E so soon after its enactment that this was the case? Unfortunately, the cancellation of your September meeting prevented me from raising this question before the board proceeded to expeditiously enact the amendments on September 20th. I conclude by respectfully recommending that you ask the board to join in amending Proposition E back to requiring a supermajority vote at both ethics and the board, as it is in all the other cases where the voters allow for amendment by voter-passed measures. I've attached a chart on the back of my statement for you to see, and I can put that on the glass if we still have time to show it to the public. If the nonprofits do not agree to this, I suggest that you take the question directly to the voters, as you now have Chapter 6 behested payments as one of your mandates. Finally, please do not lose sight of the fact that the SF Ethics Commission is a quasi-judicial body, and that as such, you should never be disrespected. Thank you very much. When you schedule this, if you do, for a future agenda, then we can discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't.
Thank you. If there are no other public commenters on site, moderator, can you please check if there's anyone waiting? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For remote participants, if you joined the meeting early to listen to the proceedings, now is the time to get in line to speak. Members of the public who are already on the line and wish to provide public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda under item number 2 should now dial *3 or raise your hand in WebEx. If you have not already done so, to be added to the public comment line, excuse me. Once you are in the queue and standing by, the system will prompt you when it's your turn to speak. We also ask that you please address your comments to the commission as a whole and not to individual members. Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Please stand by.
Chair Lee, may I ask a question?
Oh, Commissioner Bush, you had a comment? Commissioner Bush, did you want to comment?
Now can you hear me?
Yes, Larry, we can.
All right. I have a clarification question for the city attorney. Is it the case that nonprofit contacts to the city officials on matters before the city are in fact not disclosed the way for-profit lobbyists are disclosed?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brad Rusty, Deputy City Attorney. This matter is not on the agenda, and so we cannot discuss it at this time. So if you'd like to calendar the discussion of that question for a future meeting, you can do so on the last item on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, but I believe that question has just been raised by a public speaker saying that we were not informed of the context that took place in advance of the vote. And I'm asking for clarification from you as to whether or not our law gives nonprofit organizations an exemption from public disclosure of their contacts with city. Does it or does it not?
Commissioner, again, this item is not on the calendar. It's not a noticed item on the agenda, so the Commission is unable to discuss it. If it's something that was brought up in public comment, the Commission can add it to the agenda for a future meeting. Thank you.
So,
I think I'll have to assume that either you do not know the answer, or you are unwilling to tell us the answer, or you believe that they are in fact exempt from disclosure, so we would have had no way of knowing as commissioners of this back channel conversation. I will vote accordingly.
Commissioner Bush, may I suggest that we put this on the next meeting's agenda item so that it could be publicly noticed, and that we can bring in.
But Chair Lee, that means that it's going to come up after the votes have all been taken. So it's moot. It's an exercise in futility to put it over for a further agenda when in fact it's been raised as part of this meeting. We are having a discussion.
Commissioner Bush, this is Tice. I'm not sure what vote you're referring to that we're taking.
Our law on disclosures to contacts of city officials exempts nonprofits, as I understand it.
But
That was an exemption that was written in at the board by advocates for nonprofit groups.
But you just alluded to
They
us.
have come back to bounce against us in this case, since the issue has been raised about the fact that this moved its way through our system without the public disclosure. And our agency exists in part for transparency. Sounds to me like we are against our own agenda.
But Commissioner, you alluded to a vote that's before us. I'm just trying to understand what vote you're referring to.
All right, does that clarify it for you?
No, what vote are we voting on that you're concerned about?
We're going to vote on behest payments, aren't we?
No, that's not on our agenda.
Okay, so why don't we, moderator, can you please check and see if there's any public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have 2 callers in the queue. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Commissioners, Francisco da Costa. Again, every time we watch these meetings, we have a new city attorney in the chair. This causes a lot of confusion. For those of us who have chronologically been monitoring these meetings, we see clearly that in our democracy on the national level, what happens when we do not have full transparency? This SF Ethics Commission has failed us miserably. And this continuing to change the city attorneys and having some supervisor come and mudding the waters, as we saw the last time, is totally uncalled for. San Franciscans participate in this deliberation so that we can have a standard. The city ethics director has failed us. The Sunshine Task Force has failed us. And now you, SF city commissioners, have failed us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Lois Scott, Western Addition, who has voted in every San Francisco election since 1980. I am also part of a citizen-based anti-corruption group. I strongly agree with Charles Marsteller that the Ethics Commission should not be disrespected. Please be the defenders of the public interest in honest government, not protectors of privileges for special interests. Please schedule a future agenda item to discuss restoring the supermajority requirement for your recommendations to amend voter-passed initiatives related to the mandates for your vital work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please stand by. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comment is closed. Now let's go to consent calendar. Colleagues, we have agenda items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which includes the resolution on the continuation of remote hybrid commission meetings, which has appeared before us in previous meetings. Draft minutes of the commission meetings July 8th, draft minutes of July 27th, special meeting, as well as the draft minutes of the commission's regular August 12th regular meeting, as well as the executive director's report highlighting various departmental programs and operations that's dated October 7th. Unless any commissioners want to remove any items from the consent calendar, may I entertain a motion?
I move to adopt the consent calendar.
Okay. My apologies. Commissioner Bush, do you wish to remove any items from the consent calendar before we take a vote? He's on mute. Commissioner Bush, you're on
I
mute.
just unmuted you, Larry.
Okay.
Commissioner Bush, I'm sorry.
Do I understand that the consent calendar includes the executive director's report?
No,
Yes.
no, just the departmental programs and operations report.
I see, all right.
Item
Thank you.
7 is the executive director's report. At least on the agenda.
Yeah,
It looked to
Is
me
he
as
asking-
though number 7
yeah,
on the consent calendar
right,
is the executive director's report.
right.
I'd like to pull that out separately.
Okay. Okay. With no objections, do I have a motion to approve consent items number 3, 4, 5, 6?
I move to approve items 3, 4, 5, 6 from the consent calendar.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay.
Second.
Okay. Let's open up for public comment, please. Moderator?
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. Please stand by. We are checking to see if there are callers in the queue who wish to discuss any consent calendar items. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have 2 callers in the queue. Thank you, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now. Thank you, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now. Caller, are you there? All right. Please stand by as we go to the second caller. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
This is Lois Scott, but I did not intend to make a comment. I'm sorry if.
No worries. Yeah, if you can please lower your hand by hitting *3, that would be great. Thank you. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Okay, public comment is closed. We have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt the consent calendar items 3, 4, 5, and 6. Roll call, please.
On the motion to adopt the consent calendar, Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang,
Aye.
Commissioner Finliff,
Aye.
Chair Lee.
Aye.
Madam Chair, with 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you. I now call agenda item number 8, which is Executive Director's Report highlighting various departmental programs and operations. Director Pelham?
Just to clarify, Madam Chair, did I hear you wanted to move to item 7 first, or did you want to move to item 8 first?
Since we have a guest here, why don't we reverse the order? Okay. So let's go to agenda item number 8, which is discussion and possible action on beginning an executive director's recruitment process. This is one agenda item that I think none of us want to see on the meeting. Since the executive director's arrival over 6 years ago, she has applied her knowledge, her experience, her skill set, her temperament, not only to stabilize the commission, but her passion and strong commitment has really inspired her team to really build upon her commitment to an accountable government. And her leadership, working with her team, has really propelled the commission into a professional and well-respected organization that it is today. However, as difficult it is to replace her, and she is irreplaceable, this commission has the duty to start the search process starting today. Let me first say that I want to make it clear, this process will be transparent, will be open, will be inclusive, and most important, even though the decision of selecting the next director is upon this commission, but this commission will solicit all points of view. We will reach out to not only our current partners, our stakeholders, but we will reach out to other communities whose voices and perspectives will be really important as we embark on this task of selecting the next leader. We have today a representative from the Department of DHR, Department of Human DHR. She will walk us through the process of how the process of selecting the next ED for us. We have Ms. Howard from DHR. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning, President Lee. Good morning, members of the Commission. Kate Howard, Managing Deputy Director at the City's Department of Human Resources. I'm pleased to be here with you this morning to provide you with a brief overview of the process by which a Commission can begin the executive recruitment process for a new director. I have a brief presentation to provide, and I'm happy to answer questions. So as you know, your role as the Commission is to conduct a recruitment process in which you'll identify candidates who could serve as the incoming director of the Ethics Commission, to interview and evaluate those candidates, and ultimately to make a selection of the new director. In terms of the process, commissions have the choice to work with an executive recruitment firm. Occasionally, commissions will ask to work directly with DHR and to have one of our HR analysts support you in that process. But most do use a recruitment firm. Those executive recruitment firms tend to have wide public sector recruitment networks. They focus on and have a lot of experience working directly with commissions and supporting commissions managing these kinds of processes. And working with a recruitment firm also really supports candidate confidentiality, whether those candidates are internal or external. Many times people are encouraged to participate in the process, but they typically have a position already, and they're not necessarily eager to let many people know that they're in a recruitment process. So you have a choice about how to move forward in terms of working with a recruitment firm or not. I'm going to talk through kind of the steps of the process next. And typically, once if you were to decide to work with a commission, with a recruitment firm, the process takes about 16 weeks is what they'll propose to you. The actual timeline for the process will depend on the commission's ability to calendar items, to evaluate candidates, to schedule interviews, those sorts of things. But the firms have a sort of standard 16-week timeline. So let's go to the next slide. So where you are is step one, which is if you want to use an executive recruiter, DHR has a pre-qualified pool of executive recruitment firms. Those firms have gone through a competitive solicitation process, and at your direction, we could request proposals from those firms to support you in your recruitment process. Once we received those proposals, they would come back to you for review, and you would make a determination about which firm you wanted to move forward with. Typically, a firm will provide a relatively detailed proposal describing the timeline, their approach, their experience conducting recruitments both with the city and county, as well as similar kinds of recruitments for oversight bodies. Right, that would be a thing that you may want to include. They usually also will talk about their ability to attract a diverse candidate pool to present to you. Once you select which firm you would want to move forward with, the first step that they would take would be to work with the full commission or a subcommittee of the commission to develop a candidate profile. And that's essentially the public job description. So what is the commission seeking? What are the key qualities and characteristics that you need? And what does that ideal candidate look like for you? Once the commission has finalized that, then the recruitment firm will begin the outreach and recruitment process. So they're going to take that profile and they're going to work with their existing networks. They're going to work through job recruitment postings. They're going to advertise the positions in all of the places that they know about and any places that you want them to add. Once they've done that outreach and advertisement, they will then do an initial assessment of all of the candidates and determine which candidates meet the minimum qualifications for the role. And then they will bring back those candidates that do meet the minimum qualifications to the commission or the subcommittee for your evaluation and a determination about whom you wish to interview. At that point, the commission or subcommittee would conduct interviews, either a first round of interviews, and then, depending on the number of candidates, would proceed to a second round interview or make a selection at that point. The firm would help you vet the candidates as part of their process, and finally, DHR would work with you to make the final offer to the candidate. So you'd let us know who you wanted to select, and we would work with you to finalize the salary, finalize the start work date, those sorts of things. Throughout the process, the commission, and I think you raised this, President Lee, can work with you to engage stakeholders. They can, to the degree that they can structure it in the way that works best for the commission. So they can support you at a public hearing and compile public input or testimony about the role. They also can do targeted outreach to particular stakeholders that the commission thinks is important. And they'll certainly want to reach out to each commissioner to hear about qualities that you think are important as you begin the new search for the new director. So as I mentioned, DHR has a pre-qualified list of executive recruitment firms. We have 5 that are available to work with at the moment. They have all worked with the city on various recruitments over the years. And should you want to move forward with requesting proposals from those firms to see if they will meet your needs, I'm happy to begin that process on your behalf. If you do, the next step would be to request the proposals, and then we would, at a subsequent meeting, bring back the firms that were responsive for you to evaluate and make a decision about how you'd like to go forward. At that point, we would issue a notice that the commission had made a determination, and then you could begin work with that firm. Typically, the timeline, we would need about 4 weeks to get a firm on board, both to solicit the interest and then to finalize the notice of work. But they all already have contracts, so we wouldn't have to go through a secondary contracting process. That is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Howard. I have a couple of questions before I ask my colleagues to join in. Number one, is it possible to have a hybrid model? So for instance, if like you mentioned several steps, but because we are operating on a very tight timeline and we're hitting the holiday season, and we're very committed to bring on board the next director by the time January comes along, which is ambitious, but I think it's doable. Can we generate the general profiles, the job descriptions, the general qualifications, and everything else to be included in the RFP that you would be sending out to the prospective contractors? So just to save at least a couple of weeks in timeline. Would that be doable?
think your question, Commissioner Lee, is can we provide, for example, the prior job description and other background materials to the firms in advance? Is that correct?
Or new job description.
Or a new job description?
Yeah, that we would be able to draft.
We can certainly work with the commission to update the job description in advance of having a recruiter on board. If that's helpful to you to begin the process.
I'll ask our colleagues if they have any questions. Commissioner Finleff.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. And I think to the chair's point, I think that the question is, even if we were to hire a firm, there's nothing that stops us in the meantime from doing whatever we can to expedite the process, like preparing a job description, reaching out to our own networks. I think, Chair, that's part of what you're asking, right? Yeah. And I think the answer is right. We can do whatever we want.
That's correct. You are welcome to begin reviewing the job description. If you would like us to support you in, you can give us feedback and we can update those materials in advance of bringing a recruiter on board. We're happy to help you with that.
I'm just thinking that if we already have those general profiles, that would give the prospective contractor an idea of the type of candidates that we look for. It's not just a executive that we're looking for. This position is very unique, so it may be helpful to have the general profiles that we would like to see in this leader, as well as the general job description, because the one that we had in hiring Director Pelham is over 6 years old. So it would be great if we can include that in part of your RFP package. That's what I was aiming for.
I'm happy to, should the commission want to proceed and ask DHR to conduct a mini RFP on your behalf, I'm happy to include the job description either as it is or with any updates that you'd like to provide. I think that's certainly helpful to a recruitment firm to see as much information as they can get in advance about what you're looking for.
Okay, great, thank you.
I had a kind of a related question. Even if we are to issue RFPs, we're not committed to hire any of those firms, right?
No, it's an opportunity for these pre-qualified firms to express interest and availability in doing the work on your behalf, but there's no commitment that you have to use them.
Right. So given that, just to cut to the chase, I think we should today vote to issue RFPs to a firm just so we don't lose any time. We'll get the responses, and if we don't like any of them, we don't hire any of them. But there's no loss, in other words, like there's no downside to doing that. I had one just mechanical question. Since we have open meetings, how do we balance the confidentiality of any prospective interviews of a candidate? Are those kind of closed sessions if commissioners were to interview a candidate? That may be a question for the city attorney, or maybe you can speak to that.
I'm happy to answer based on what other commissions do, and then if Mr. Russi would like to add, he's welcome to. So typically, anything related to the job description, the process that you're going through, that's all done in open session, like you're doing today. When the commission is considering the confidential HR documents, the resumes, for example, of candidates, that's done in a closed session to protect the confidentiality of the candidates and the confidentiality of the interview process. So, ultimately, the commission does need to disclose, your action. So you would conduct those interviews, you would make a determination about whom you wish to interview, the negotiation would happen in terms of salary and start date, and then the commission would make a public announcement of what action you had taken.
I was going to ask, because we have the presence of the DHR representative, that we were going to go over the DHR end of assisting this commission. After we have a discussion, then the deputy city attorney will walk us through with the other aspects of how this commission can proceed in terms of our actual search and our actual selection, which would include the meetings and the deliberations and everything else. So if that's open to my colleagues, then we can continue to, if we have any further questions for Director Howard, then we can have that discussion. Commissioner Flores?
I have no questions for Director Howard at this moment. I agree with Commissioner Finlove that if we can move the
Yes.
RFI process along, that's fine.
Commissioner Bush, do you have any questions for Director Howard?
Yes, I have comments in general. Is this the right time to make those comments, or should be directed?
Why don't we
specifically?
wait until we hear from the Deputy City Attorney for all other questions? But right now, if we have any questions for the on the DHR end?
All right.
None? Okay. Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
My pleasure. We're happy to
Howard.
support the commission, and of course, should you ultimately make a decision to work with an executive recruitment firm, we will also have a staff person available to support the commission about city process throughout the whole engagement.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I understand Director Pelham was brought to us through a very extensive search process. The commission at that time was led by Chair Rennie. He had appointed a search committee to do the actual due diligence because it takes a lot of work. And since his model was very successful, I would like us to follow that model. And I would like to ask our Deputy City Attorney right now to walk through for us, now that we know the general concept, what can be done from the city side, how they could be supportive of us, but what can we do as a commission to carry out the task of the recruitment, the engagement, the solicitation of not just finding the candidate, but who the candidate could be and should be, the profiles, the qualifications, and how do we do that under complete transparency, following existing rules, and not only that, but our own rules, which is keeping the public engaged and involved. So, Deputy City Attorney, like to.
Sure. Good morning again, Commissioners. Deputy City Attorney Brad Russi. I
Do
think
you mind standing out there so we can see you? Thank
I
you.
don't know if I can.
Thank
I don't know if the mic's going to pick me up though. So the
Podium.
up there. Sure. Good morning again, Commissioners. Deputy City Attorney Brad Russi. So I think the question is sort of process for the commission in terms of whether you want to hold meetings as a full commission, form a subcommittee, delegate certain aspects of the process to a single commissioner. All of those things are available for you as options. I think Ms. Howard laid out the process in terms of working with a recruiter very well, and you can include the recruiter representative in all of the meetings that the commission holds. You're open to form a subcommittee, which I think is what happened the last time this process was undertaken. All the open meeting requirements would apply to that subcommittee, which means that to the extent you're discussing the qualifications, the ideal qualifications of the director, the search process, those meetings would need to happen in open session. But once you get to the point with the recruitment firm where there's been candidates have submitted their information and you're reviewing resumes and you're interviewing, whether that's done in a subcommittee or before the full commission, those items would be held in closed session, assuming you're going to grant confidentiality to the candidates, which is recommended. You could also delegate certain aspects of the process to a single commissioner to undertake. That wouldn't necessarily need to be held in a public meeting. That could be The commissioner could seek input from various stakeholders on their own without holding a public meeting, although they could do it in public as well. The reason for that is that a single commissioner is not a policy body for purposes of this effort. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Lee?
Any questions?
I had
City Attorney?
one very nitty-gritty question. The actual review of resumes, does that have to happen in closed session, or can those just be emailed to the commissioners?
If the commission wishes to discuss the candidates, that would be at a closed session meeting.
Right, not discussion, just literally looking at them for
Right.
individual
Those,
commissioners.
I think what would probably happen is the recruitment firm would send you the application materials in advance of a meeting, and you'd be able to review those, prepare for the meeting. Then you come to the meeting and discuss them with your commissioners in closed session.
Thank you.
Would it be allowable if we were to have a subcommittee in charge of the overall process, make sure that, every step is taken? But given our schedule, those two individuals may not be able to do all the meetings. So can the chair assign other members to attend specific activities, so to speak? Maybe it could be a meeting with the staff, meeting with the stakeholders, or what have you, so that each one of us, if we want to, we could be fully engaged at different aspects of the meeting. Of course, all of us will be reviewing the finalists, whether it's, whatever the number of the slate is, but in addition to the actual selection, maybe the final third step would be the full commission. But before then, we may need to have a different model of getting each one of us engaged. Maybe someone wants to review all of the resumes instead of all 5 of us reviewing the final list. I don't know. But do we have that kind of a flexibility to do that?
Yes, Commissioner. I think you could designate a single commissioner to perform a specific task if you wish to do so, and bring that information or recommendation back to the subcommittee or the full commission. I'm not sure if you mentioned potentially an alternate to your subcommittee if you did that, but that is a possibility too, if you wanted to have one commissioner serve as an alternate to a subcommittee of 2. We don't recommend that a subcommittee of 3 be appointed, because then it would constitute a quorum of the full commission, and that makes the noticing of meetings a little more complicated. And one caution I would make to you all, which I know you already know, is that any discussions that you're having outside of a meeting, or you need to limit, you can't have discussions basically amongst yourselves outside of a noticed public meeting. You just have to keep that in mind with respect to this process as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Bush, do you have any questions for the city attorney?
No, not for the city attorney.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let us hear from our members of our public. Do we have any members who wish to speak on site? If not, moderator, can you please check to see if anyone wishes to speak?
Lee,
Oh, yeah. Yes, Commissioner Bush.
I didn't have questions for the deputy city attorney, but I do have questions about where we are in this process right now. Is this the right time to bring those up?
Sure.
I was involved closely in the selection of the process that resulted in the hiring of Leanne Pelham. That process involved an outreach to the state ethics commissions to see if there were existing commissioners or officers in those other jurisdictions that were interested. It also involved in reformulating what the salary would be, because pretty much the salaries were dictated by the number of employees or the size of the budget. rather than the duties that were involved. And as we all know, the Ethics Commission duties involved substantially more than normal management and administrative work. Secondly, we needed to add more criteria, for example, an ability to deal with social media and with languages other than English, all of which played a role in ultimately deciding to go outside of the pre-qualified list and outside of the requirement that a departmental director be a San Francisco resident. As you know, Leanne Pelham has not been a San Francisco resident. And that was a good decision on our part, not to limit it that way. So as we discuss this, I think that we ought to give ourselves maximum flexibility. In that respect, I think that trying to have a replacement at the time that Director Pelham's resignation takes effect is asking more than we have a right to do in terms of a public process. Because as Chair Lee has pointed out, this falls within 2 holiday periods, Thanksgiving and Christmas, followed closely by New Year's, in which case there really isn't a time, and the normal time that even under their restricted approach was 16 weeks. So I think that we need to discuss looking at an interim executive director as well as having a selection process. And so I don't think that we need to tie our hands into a 12-week process. I'd just like to share those thoughts with my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Finlay.
Yeah, I think I agree with Commissioner Bush. I'd love to have a replacement by the time Director Pelham leaves, but I'm not sure it may not happen, just realistically. So I think he's wise to raise that concern. I think in terms of the interim or deputy director, as I understood the city attorney's memo, I think if we do nothing, the deputy director becomes the acting director. Is that right?
That's correct, Commissioner.
So I guess as we get closer to that timeline, we can revisit whether we want to do anything contrary to that or whether we like that. And I'm in no way prejudging that decision, but that's just raised by Commissioner Bush's comments. So I think he's wise to make us put that on our radar.
And I also want to add that we still have a fully engaged executive director until January 23rd. So I think that the current way of operating still would be the ideal way, just to make sure that there is stabilization moving forward in the Commission's operation. So if we can open up for...
Sorry, I have a few comments.
Yeah. Oh,
before we open up for public comment. On this point, I understand that if somebody within the staff is interested in becoming or being considered, isn't that something that has to be announced early on, just so that we can make sure they're not included in the process for selecting the next executive director? So to this point where it's like if there's somebody already here who we're considering, even for interim director, it's something that I think we should also keep in mind. So not sure how we can do that and be mindful of that. Like if there's a deadline by when somebody within the group wants to.
Well, it seems like I really like the precedent set by Chair Rennie when he appointed himself and the vice chair to head the search committee. At the same time, making sure that everyone stays fully informed and engaged. And maybe some of those questions that we have could be addressed by the search committee in public notice subcommittee meetings, right?
I'm Commissioner's Brad Russi again, Deputy City Attorney. I think Commissioner Flores-Fang's question is more about interested members of staff or commissioners who might be interested in the role, whether they can participate in the process at all. And the answer is no. If there are staff who are interested in applying for the position, they shouldn't involve themselves at any point in the process. They shouldn't involve themselves in any meeting with the commissioners to discuss the preferred candidate qualities of the candidate. They should recuse themselves from that process. If any commissioner were interested in the position as well, they should recuse really now if any of you were interested in applying for the position.
That's helpful. And so to that point, given that we want to move quickly, and I mean, I'm not sure if by the end of today we'll decide that we're going to revise the job description and whether we're going to put out the requests for the firms. Like, I think things are moving pretty quickly. And so to that point, do we have a deadline for people who are within the staff who want to kind of present themselves as candidates to do so, or is that not something people do? I just want to be mindful. There are like a lot of concurrent processes, and I don't want us to kind of rule somebody out because we didn't have a deadline.
I think that the commission, that the executive director has sent a memo that I wrote concerning this question, or it included this question as part of the topics that was discussed, to the staff. And so they're on notice that if they are interested in the position, they should not be participating in the process from the outset. So I don't think there's necessarily a deadline, but anyone on staff who is considering it should not involve themselves in anything that you all are doing in terms of the selection process from the outset.
Okay, that's helpful. And I did have one follow-up about just thinking about the interview process and the number of candidates that we're considering. I was wondering if we wanted to decide on like a ballpark number, or if we wanted to first recruit the firm, if that's the route we're going, and then decide based on how wide they cast their net. But I think given the timeline, if we want to have like a solid number of people who realistically we can evaluate and really dig into their backgrounds and resumes, that would be helpful to help guide our process.
I would like to see this a national search because this commission has gained national credibility because of the work of the director and the team. And I think that we should not limit ourselves to, geographically or number-wise. But at the same time, if we choose to use a search firm or even on our own, we need to be mindful of the type of person that we want. We definitely don't want the search team just to send us 100 resumes when 99 of them really don't meet the criteria. So I do think that some of those questions, if we can have a general idea of like how we want to see this person to be, and then leave it to the search committee who will be reporting back to the full commission regularly, to leave it to them to deal with some of these questions, because they may come up if we look at the pool, and if we see that, hey, there are some excellent people, there are 5 or 10 of them, we may want the entire commission to interview them. Or if there are only a couple of them that would really warrant a deeper dive into looking at their qualifications. So there are a lot of moving parts. So I like to be flexible, mindful that all of us at whatever point will have our input to make sure that no one is going to be left in the dark, so to speak. So I'm just thinking of the time, the actual time and the actual efforts that would take to move this from A to Z. And if there's a way to really streamline it by by processing some of the other tasks, so that all 5 of us can really focus on the most important decision-making aspects. That might be a workable model. But again, I'm open to your suggestions. Commissioner Finlay?
I would love to be in a position to have more resumes from qualified folks than we can interview. I think that was your question. I think if we get to that point, then it might make sense to have we may not be able to interview every qualified person, but I think that's hard to determine before we actually get resumes. To the chair, it sounds like the chair likes the subcommittee model that was used before, which seems fine to me, but I'm curious, what are the specific tasks that you think the subcommittee would kind of address that the commission at large would not be involved in?
Looking back at what happened, and Commissioner Bush can chime in, the subcommittee was very engaged with a lot of the recruitment. They really they reached out to the contacts to make sure that people who are qualified might be interested, should really consider applying for the position, number one. So they really help cast a very strategic, wide national net. But more important to me was they really reach out to the stakeholders, which takes a lot of the efforts and the time. And given the time that we have, it would be, they met with not just the existing stakeholders and other partners, but they really met other communities to really solicit their ideas of who they really wanted to be to lead the commission. And I am fully committed to make sure that we have a very inclusive engagement effort. So with that, I think that it might be easier to have a committee that will meet with these folks twice a week, 3 times a week. I don't know how many meetings we may need to be. But that's why I asked the Deputy City Attorney how this system is going to work. Because if we were to hold a public meeting with all 5 of us involved, that would be, it takes a lot of meetings. So that does not mean that other people would not be able to participate. So for instance, if we're going to have 30 community meetings, not any one of us can make all 30, but each one of us would want to make at least one. So that's why I like the model of a subcommittee, so that it doesn't require all 5 of us to be engaged at everything, but the members of this committee will be doing the bulk of the work, again, reporting back to the full body of what they've heard, what they've seen. And at the same time, every one of these activities is open to the other commissioners who wants to participate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know if we need to formally vote to create a subcommittee, but I think if you and Vice Chair Bush want to be on a subcommittee that starts to hold, I guess, interested persons meetings or any kind of meetings tomorrow, for that matter, I think that's a wonderful idea. I don't know that we need to.
I think we do.
Well, if we have to vote on it, then.
Yeah, it needs to be noticed.
Okay, well then we.
Right? We need to be noticed on every part of the subcommittee meetings and activities.
Commissioners, the question whether the meetings of the subcommittee need to be noticed and open to the public? Yes, that they do. Or are you asking whether you need to vote on whether to create the subcommittee?
Thank you. No, I think we were asking 2 different things. I was asking whether we need to vote to create a subcommittee. I don't think we need to vote. Well, I don't know. Do we?
I believe the chair has the authority to create a committee of the commission if she wishes.
It's a little hard to hear your mics.
Sorry, I believe the chair has the authority to create a subcommittee if she wishes, but if you wanted to put it to a vote, that's also permissible.
Great. So I would fully support, Madam Chair, you and the Vice Chair engaging stakeholders at your convenience, starting as soon as you want to. That's just my own opinion, but I think that's a important thing to do, and I think it's great that you're willing to do that.
And I would amend that, if you don't mind, I would amend that that would include an alternate member of the commission, just in case. There aren't two of us who could make those meetings. Okay. So,
May I-
can we- Commissioner
Shirley?
Bush? Commissioner Bush?
I think that a prelude to all of this is to have us develop a more robust idea of what the requirements are for the new executive director. Because I don't think that what we want to do now is just proceed without rethinking what the job is. When Leanne came in as the director, we were a completely different commission. We had something like 6 or 7 staff and a minuscule budget that was unable to meet any of our real needs. And if you look now, we still have needs that are not fully met because of budget restrictions that we have. So maybe some of the issues that we're going to be looking at is the extent to which you have a director who will advocate for fuller funding to meet all of the public's expectations of this commission. But that doesn't even begin to touch on the issue of outreach to the community. I don't think we have very much that's posted in languages other than English, and that's a problem because it excludes a significant portion. I see that the most recent polling shows that the most active voters in the city are Chinese Americans, and we don't have any postings that are of significant size in Chinese. So I think our starting place is less soliciting application than it is soliciting from the public and stakeholders and others what it is that this job will now be, since we have an opportunity to rethink it. But I'd be interested to hear what other commissioners think of that.
I mean, I think the voice of the public is obviously very important. I do think that as a commission, we need to think about the job description together, and that's something that we can obviously do in public session, but I think that we've all benefited greatly from Leanne's help, and I think, as to Commissioner Bush's point, the commission has just changed, and our needs are changing, and the public's needs are changing. So our work and what our goals are changing, and so I think that the more we discuss that, like, this is a great time to just kind of establish our goals and establish our targets, and then from there kind of think about where we could invite the executive director's help, and then from there kind of revise the job description. I think that's something that we should do very promptly, and I don't know if that's something the subcommittee will do or if one commissioner will do and kind of present to the rest, but that's something that I think should be pretty high on the list.
If I can suggest, the subcommittees would definitely need to draft the general job description ASAP. But my understanding from the city attorney is it does not preclude any individual members of checking in with the director of the folks to find out, how their perspectives of what a ideal ethics commission executive director they would like to see. So I think because I don't want us to have to wait until November to finalize a job description, because that would be 4 weeks missed. So would that be a workable alternative for the individual commissioners to draft whatever they would like to see in the job description, and then for the subcommittee members to put that together and submit it to the DHR as part of the RFP process, would that be agreeable? Or do we need to approve the job description as a body before we do that?
Commissioner, I think if each commissioner is going to provide input on the question, that the ultimate discussion and action would need to be at the full commission rather than at a subcommittee. If you wanted to delegate the authority to the subcommittee to approve the final description, that would be fine. But to the extent you're going to be asking each commissioner for input, I think that would possibly run afoul of the Brown Act. So, but my understanding from Ms. Howard was that you all could, she's available now to reach out to the search firms to get proposals, and which could be presented to you at your November meeting, I think, as I heard her say. At that meeting, you could also discuss the candidate profile if you wanted and gather input from the public. It could be noticed as as a discussion of the qualifications and desired profile of the candidate, and also to review the proposals from the search firms and decide on which firm to go with.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for the whole commission to vote on the final job description, given how important that is. But that doesn't stop the subcommittee from engaging with the community starting as soon as it wants to. I think I assume part of the point of those public meetings is to help inform the job description. So that'll happen. Like, the actual language of the job description does not need to happen tomorrow. That's kind of in the middle of the process, I think.
So if we can, that's what I was asking, if we can just have a general job description to be included in the RFP. And meanwhile, because it's going to be a long process, and we may, by the time we start the second, third round, we may be able to hone in more on the qualifications and the profile that we would like to see in that person after we gather more input from our stakeholders.
So the RFP is for the firms to ask us to hire them. They're not sending out job descriptions to prospective candidates to be the ED. So it's going to be at least a month or longer before the firms are actually, if we hire firms, before they actually send out any job description. I thought your comments earlier was about when we're soliciting the RFPs, can we include the last session's job description so the firms know generally what we're looking for? Yeah. I think that makes all the sense in the world, but that's not the description that they'll be sending out to prospective candidates. That's just the description so that the hiring firms know what they're applying for when they're sending us their applications for themselves to be hired to conduct the recruitment process.
Well, it should also include the type of people that we want, in general, the general profile, so that they know that, this would require a certain type of outreach. If we mention that we want someone to have national experience, that they know that they would need to look at the national pool instead of a local pool. So everything is general. I don't think we want to have everything set in stone, but at the same time, any recruiting firm would know that in general, this is the type of person that we want, and they need to break, if they could go to whatever universe that they have. And that's why it's important to find the right firm so that they're not just setting us a good executive. We want someone who has the vision and the expertise in a very selective area.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, what can we send to DHR right now?
Chair Lee?
Process. Yes, Commissioner Bush.
I think that we have to recognize that we should not just reach out to DHR and their vetted list, but that we should reach out to other ethics agencies. How did they select somebody to be their directors? I mean, how was Leanne replaced in LA when she left there? What are the different steps that are involved in their own examination? Because otherwise, we're going to be in a hothouse of looking only at what we're familiar with and not what we don't know well. And there are, since we began this process, a dozen very effective ethics organizations around the country. And I think we need to reach out to as many as possible to at least solicit their views on what they found as necessary and where they would like to see next steps for themselves. In addition to that, I think we should reach out to some of the past commissioners who have experience. Dana Chu was the chair of the commission for a while, and she has a lot of insight into things that go on with the Ethics Commission. So I don't want to see us start off with answering a question we haven't asked ourselves. So that's something I wanted to say. Thank you.
And I think that's why the subcommittee and individual commissioners should, do our part to reach out and to get as much advice, perspectives as possible. Granted, we have to operate within the legal requirement that we have as commission and as commissioners.
Madam Chair, it sounds like from Director Howard's report, there are only 5 approved executive search firms the city works with anyways. So if we're issuing RFPs, it's going to go to those 5 firms. Hopefully I'll respond. But to Commissioner Bush's point, none of that stops us from reaching out to our own networks, and we should be doing all those things.
Yes.
But I think today we should, well, I'll make a motion on this, but just so we have clarity, I think we should ask DHR to issue RFPs to those 5 approved executive search firms. We should include the description from last hiring session. And if the chair wants to modify that or add to that to reflect the national, what the chair referenced, that's totally fine with me to help those firms prepare the RFPs. But none of that, again, stops us from reaching out to our own networks and doing other things.
And none of us would stop us from directing whatever firm that we decide. We may decide not to take anybody. We may decide to do it on our own. But whatever it is still the responsibility of the commission to make sure that we have a qualified, exemplary pool of candidates that we would consider. Through that, individually and collectively, we should reach out to anyone who can really add the wisdom to this process would be welcomed. So with that,
Yeah, I just have one quick question, or this may be something that I missed earlier, but we've established that there's going to be a subcommittee, and you asked the question, Commissioner Finlev, about just kind of outlining the responsibilities. I think that would be helpful for the rest of the commissioners to know, just so we can be clear on what's being done concurrently with whatever outreach we're doing. That's really the only question I have. Otherwise, I agree with the motion that you've yet to make, and we'll probably second that.
and again, all of those activities are they're required to be noticed. All of the work that the commission, the subcommittee does, has to be noticed. Yeah.
Right, not just notice, but I think the rest of us should know what the subcommittee is tasked with. As I understand it, we just discussed kind of the community outreach. At the moment, that's what the subcommittee will be doing that we discussed. If there are other things, that's fine, but we should discuss that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll change once we have the firm.
Yeah, it would
as
be
well.
more than outreach. It would be, it may involve, meeting with the firm, finding out where are they in terms of the recruitment. Why do we only have 5 applicants, different things that really requires, it's just like any other firm when they need to hire a CEO or what have you, they do have a subcommittee to really do all the legwork. So I think I would envision this committee to do that. And since Vice Chair Bush was involved with the last go-around, and I would definitely reach out to Chair Rennie to make sure that we learn from all the good, bad, and uglies that they went through.
Great, so I'll make my motion then, unless anyone had questions about the motion I intend to make about hiring the search firms. I move that we ask DHR to solicit RFPs to the approved executive search firms, including the language from the prior job description, as amended by the chair or anyone else if they would like to. I would like the RFPs to target being returned by the next commission meeting so we can discuss them at that point. That can't be a requirement. That's more something that I think we should ask DHR to strive for. But the motion, I guess, is to ask DHR to issue RFPs to the approved executive search firms.
Okay. Commissioner Bush, you have a comment?
Yes. I'd just like to note that the recent department head hirings have all been done without a process like this. So that you have the new head of the Public Utilities Commission. We obviously have other departments that are now being filled by people being appointed and not through a search process, including even the city attorney and the district attorney. So by approaching this through the lens of already existing search organizations, we are automatically closing down the scope of our effort. So I would suggest a friendly amendment to the commissioner's motion, which is that we ask DHR for doing an outreach to their list, but to expand their list to include other entities that are relevant to the Ethics Commission work. Thank you.
My Vice Chair Bush, my understanding from DHR is the director can add her experience. My understanding is the city has a pre-approved list of firms, and if we were to go outside of this list, then that group or those groups will need to go through the city's approval process, which takes any time from half a year to a year, which we don't have the luxury to use. However, there have been other government entities, when they give a contract to the existing contractor or vendor, they would put a amendment to say, you are deficient in this one area that we really need to address, and part of your subcontract would need to involve a tribal organization or native organization, whatever it is. That has been done. Maybe we can ask Director Howard if that's possible, but I think right now, if we want to go outside of the city's list, and I understand, Commissioner Bush, your thoughts, because unlike other department heads, this one is not appointed by anybody. This one is solely selected by the commission. This person is not going to be recommended by the mayor's office or the board of supervisors. It would truly be a commission decision. So it is unlike any other executives that the search firms had selected. But let's see who they are. Again, these are public record, and I will go to the website and send it to everybody, and you can look at the search firms who are currently on the list. and then we can just move from there. Because again, we direct what the firm does. And I think that we have to do all the due diligence. We cannot leave it up to the firm to do everything that we wanted to. So the five of us, individually and collectively, can really fill the pool from the contacts that we have. We individually and collectively can improve upon the job description, to honed in to the qualifications, the profiles, and the experience that we want from this person. So it's not a one and done deal. So I just want us to keep in mind with that.
Thank you. Yeah, my motion is purely to issue RFPs, not to hire any search firm, not to commit to hiring a firm, not to prevent anyone from reaching out to any other network. Purely to issue RFPs so that we can evaluate the search firm's credentials, qualifications, and interest in doing this.
And to save the
To
time.
be clear, I have no objections to the scope as it's described in this motion. I just think that starting off with their approved list, in effect, in politics, you learn to ask the question is to know the answer. And so the answer you're going to get back is not going to include input from the controller, who did many reports on the effectiveness of the Ethics Commission in meeting its dues, or it's not going to include Harvey Rose, the budget analyst, and their reports on the effectiveness of the Ethics Commission. There are other places that have given us input and made it public, where we have discussed that input. And now there won't be people who are automatically the topics and projects of our outreach. Our outreach is going to be limited to these 5 pre-cleared groups.
Commissioner,
If I could just clarify, Vice Chair Bush, nothing is going to stop us from amending the job description and the qualification. And as the motion was made, it was made to say including any amendments that the chair or her designee would include. So be assured that the job descriptions and general profile would include, and I will be working with you to make sure that those things will, those general background will be included. And again, I just want to reemphasize, from what I understand, if we do not go to the pre-approved firms, any outside firms will require more time. And you can look at this firm not as the driver. We are the drivers. They are the ones who are going to take the directions from us. So it's up to us to determine how they do the outreach, if they're selected, after they're selected, what kind of universe that they have to focus on. So it is up to us. So we're not going to lose any of our responsibilities in terms of finding the best qualified candidate for the next, for our next director. So does that?
That helps. I think I've outlined the concerns that I have, and at least they've surfaced in the discussion. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. So let's open up for public comment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are callers in the queue who wish to comment on item number 8. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have one caller in the queue. Please stand by.
New forms. I don't
Welcome,
have
caller.
the new form.
Your 3 minutes begin now.
I really don't have it. Okay.
Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, it looks like he was preoccupied. Another call. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comment for agenda item number 8 is closed. We have a motion on the floor, seconded, to direct the DHR to solicit, to send out the RFPs. The RFPs will include the current job description amended by the chair and her designee. How's that? And that would be done today.
What will be done today?
You want the DHR person to do it ASAP or?
What? As soon as they can issue them, I doubt they can do it today.
Okay, so let's just say that we direct them to do it by next Friday. How's that? Give them five days to.
Well, I'd rather direct them to do it as soon as they can. I don't know what their deadlines or process is.
Okay.
But I think the
As
goal
soon
would
as
be to
possible.
have, just the hope would be to have the RFPs returned by the next commission meeting so that we can evaluate them.
They say it only takes 4 weeks, and I think they could reduce that to 3 weeks. I don't think 4 weeks is a hard deadline. Okay, so the motion, and they have a motion, and we have a second. Roll call, please.
To motion, Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang,
Aye.
Commissioner Finliv,
Aye.
Chair Lee.
Aye.
Chair Lee, with 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we go to agenda item number 7, which is Executive Director's Report. Director Pelham?
Thank you, Chair Lee. I believe the item 7 was pulled from consent by Commissioner Bush, who perhaps had some questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that he or other commissioners may have. This report highlighted some information regarding the campaign finance dashboards that have been updated for the election season, provided some background on the public financing program that is underway for the November 8th election, previewed what we plan to do in the spring with a usual report that's mandated to review the public financing program, and also provided a summary of, as of September, of where we are in the planning and development for the Ethics at Work program. We have our new program manager, Peter Lauterborn, with us today if there are specific questions about that program. And we added our thanks, of course, to outgoing Deputy City Attorney Andrew Shen for his support and work with the Commission over the years. Was a very helpful ally and professional, and we're also happy to welcome Deputy City Attorney Russi to be with the Commission starting today, as the Commission noted, or as the Commission Chair noted earlier. So happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Bush, you have any questions?
Yes, as is often the case, the executive director's report speaks primarily to what we are doing at ethics itself, but not to those areas that have a direct impact on ethics. For example, the FPPC is just passing a new policy on behested payments. So I think the director's report might include, and I think it was requested before, a summary of other actions, either at the state or the federal level, that impact our stakeholders. So that's one thing that I would like to see in the executive director's report that was just submitted.
Okay. Okay, any other comments? Okay. Public comments, please.
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. agenda item number 9, please, which is presentation and discussion of the process to develop Ethics Commission behested payments regulations. Let's have Mr. Kenny to make a presentation.
Hello, Commissioners. Just to briefly recap the memo on this item, provides an overview of the Commission's regulatory authority and the process for developing regulations, as well as gives an update on the status of the behested payments regulations that are currently being developed. Regarding the behested payments regulations, following 2 interested persons meetings held late last month and continued discussion with stakeholders, we have a good sense of what the initial regulations should likely address and are planning to bring draft language to the Commission's next meeting for review and discussion. Also, as a more general update on behested payments, the legislation the Commission voted to approve in August has since been approved by the Board of Supervisors and was signed by the Mayor on October 6th and will go into effect on November 6th. And we're currently working with our engagement and compliance and ethics at work divisions, as well as the City Attorney's Office to work to update materials and prepare communications in advance of those changes happening on November 6th. Happy to take any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Finlap?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Canning, thank you for that update. And I know that one of the items that you're looking at amending is the definition of at the behest of, which to me is probably the key, well, maybe that's overstating it, but I think some of the concerns that were raised by nonprofits and other city partners stem from that definition being so broad that it includes even communications where the city is just passively answering questions from, I think, the city partners. So I think amending that definition to make it more focused on the problematic conduct that the statute seeks to address, but not kind of the innocent advisory functions almost that I think it maybe inadvertently captures. So I think it's great that you're focused on that issue, and I'd be very interested in seeing whatever language can address that. I don't have any specific language on that, just to cheer on that work, and I'm glad you're focused on that particular portion of it.
Any other comments? Commissioner Flores-Fan?
I also am very excited to see, what the staff comes up with, and I was wondering if you could maybe provide what you have on a rolling basis, just to make sure, because I feel like there's a short time frame for us to review these regulations and then vote on them in order for them to be provided in time for January. And so I'm happy to, it would be nice if we could have them on a rolling basis also, because I know you present beautiful, thorough, complete documents, but given the time frame, I'd be happy to see those on a rolling basis.
Yes, would the request be to send earlier drafts to commissioners?
Right, where it's, for example, Commissioner Finlap just pointed out bullet point number 2. So it's like, if that's done, that's something that we could read before bullet point number 1, which is also, I think, very high on the list and something that I had mentioned at the last meeting. So.
Vice Chair Bush, do you have any questions for Mr. Kenny?
Some questions about whether we are actually providing the transparency that the public is looking for when it comes to behested payments. 2 categories come to mind. One is when the behest is being made by the mayor or the mayor's designee for a project that has been decided as being in the city's general interest and not for a specific department. So, for example, the creation of a committee to obtain the Super Bowl contract, which involved a number of city agencies and departments, but which was not behested specifically, and the mayor never listed soliciting contributions for that. The same thing went for the celebration of San Francisco City Hall on its 100th anniversary, in which several $1 million was spent, or on the committee that was for the regatta, the one-time sailing event in the bay, all of which involve other city departments and which involve payments by city contractors, but where the contract was not specifically with the mayor or otherwise. So I'm not sure if they are visible under this kind of definition. So that's one consideration I have. And the second consideration is where the behested payment is going to a nonprofit that has as an officer, even if it's an unpaid officer, someone who is a relative of the official making the request. And not to put too fine a point on it, but we did have an acting mayor who solicited contributions to a nonprofit that was chaired by the official's spouse and resulted in many millions of dollars, and it was actually the vehicle used by Mohammed Nehru to launder money as he deemed as in the interest. So when we talk about the behested payments and what's encompassed in it, I understand the Commission's point that we don't want to make it overly broad. On the other hand, we want to recognize the reality that we do have city commissioners who have spouses who are officers in nonprofits that may not be paid, but who are of important influence to the official, and that may be through an entity that is not designated to a specific contract, but which is a general overall thing. So I think that we might want to rethink how we are defining behested payments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, let's go to public comment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, public comment on item number 9 is now closed. Agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action on Ethics Commission's draft annual report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Director Pelham.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Commissioners, this item is on your agenda today. It is a draft of an annual report for the period ending June 30th of this calendar year. You'll recall that in the bylaws, the Commission approves the annual report before it's issued, and so we have prepared a report that is attached to the material, also attached to the agenda, also appearing as a web version, a web-based version for folks to look at it in whichever format they prefer. But it is a draft report, and we provided it to you so that if you have any edits, suggestions, other things you would like to see changed, we can incorporate that feedback and either bring that back to you at next month's meeting for final adoption, or if the Commission is comfortable with this draft, you certainly have the option to approve it as well today. As we have done in the past, once the reports are finalized, we post them on our website, we circulate them to our interested persons list and try to get them out as broadly as possible. One of the exciting things with our new Ethics at Work team is we are upping our social media presence as well, so we're hoping that we'll be in broader circulation than we have in the past with this report as well as other documents. But we are happy, Deputy Director Gayatri Taikandil could not be here this morning, but we're happy to take any feedback that you might have, and again, take whatever next steps according to your preference today.
Thank you. Questions?
My only question is, this looks great. My only question is whether there's a specific deadline by which the Commission has to issue the report.
Commissioner Finlev, there is not.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you. It looks great. There's a lot of work went into this, obviously, and it looks nice. I would like to not vote on it today to have more time to review it, but I don't have specific suggestions at this stage.
Commissioner?
I also don't have any specific questions. I mean, I already asked my specific questions to Mr. Ford before the meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Bush?
Yes, I submitted some issues that I thought were worth raising for us as a commission. I think that the staff has done what Commissioner what Director Pelham has done is a very good summary of where we are now. I think it falls to the commission to decide what are the next steps that we need to take. And I don't think that that's something we should delegate to staff, but that's a responsibility of the commission. And so I listed and sent out, and this is certainly covered by a Brown Act disclosure, a list of the examples of things that I think, as looking forward, we need to look at, including in our annual report. Because while this annual report has a paragraph or so at the end about looking forward, I think that the public is looking for a lot more than just a paragraph there. And that is the responsibility of us as a commission. And this is the commission's report. So I would like to circulate that to my colleagues as well as to the public in case they would like to make amendments to anything that's under consideration. Thank you.
So Vice Chair Bush, do you want to share your recommended, next step or moving forward paragraph
Yes,
or
I
page
do,
for
but
us
it's in
before the
writing.
next meeting?
I can send it. It's in this writing. It's in a document that I've sent out.
My
I think-
apologies, I didn't get it. Okay.
Oh, well, I might have sent it to your personal email. I'm sorry.
Okay. 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 This is, Director Pelham, this is a really well-drafted, well-thought-out report, so thank you very much. Some of us have sat through this annual report process for a few times now, and this is like night and day from the first report, and thank you for your leadership and your team of putting this together. My only suggestion is, since this is going to go out to the public, if you can work on a cover letter, just one pager, or just key bullet points so that would pique the public's interest, and even if they don't read the body of the report, they would know what we've done the last year, which is a lot of great work. So that would be my only recommendation, just to have the cover sheet, so to speak. So thank you again, and thank you to your team. If we don't have any other comments,
Madam Chair, I thought Director Pelham maybe had a comment she wanted to make.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to respond to, Commissioner Bush had provided 7 comments that he wished to see incorporated in the report, and he asked me to share those with the Commission, so I did forward them previously to the Commission in advance of this meeting after receiving them from Commissioner Bush. Of those 7 items, 4 of them were included and addressed in the report that we have in front of you. There were other items that were more generalized comments, so we didn't incorporate changes because we didn't see that there was a change to be made in this report. But in any event, as I understand it, it sounds like the Commission's interest at this point is to take the time over the next few weeks to digest the report and then place it for final adoption at the November meeting. Is that the consensus of the Commission?
and also since Commissioner Romano is not here and I had not checked in with him
Sure.
regarding the specifics, so we can wait for one.
Great. We'll make sure to reach out to him as well.
Thank you.
Prior to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more comments, public comment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the public who are already online and wish to provide public comment on agenda item number 10 should now dial *3 or raise your hand in WebEx, if you have not already done so, to be added to the public comment line. Each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to provide public comment. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to agenda item number 11, which is potential closed session. Today's agenda includes a proposed closed session item and under item 11 for an update with labor negotiators regarding labor negotiations. This item has been scheduled for the Commission's discussion and possible action. Employee relations staff from DHR and City Attorney, labor lawyers have been invited to be with us today for this closed session item. The anticipated issue in the negotiation is the status of the meeting confer with the employee organization, San Francisco Municipal Executives Association, regarding the Ethics Commission's proposed June 2022 ballot measure and regulation amendments. For purpose of this item today, there are 4 steps involved. First, under item 11A, we will receive public comment on all matters pertaining to agenda item number 11, including whether to meet in closed session. Second, we will then vote on whether to meet in closed session under California Government Code, Section 54957-6, and Sunshine Ordinance Section 67-10-E to discuss labor negotiations. This will be an action item as noted in item 3B. Third, if a closed session is held, the Commission will initiate a closed session meeting to meet with the labor negotiator, and following that closed session, we will then reconvene in open session. Fourth, pursuant to Brown Act Section 54957-1 and Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.12, and as shown on the agenda item, we will discuss and vote on the motion regarding whether or not to disclose any action taken or discussions held in closed session regarding the labor negotiations. Any questions about the process that we've gone through a few times already? No? Commissioner Bush?
No.
Okay. So I'd like to ask our city attorney if there's anything that you would want to add to this process.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, what was the question?
Do you wish to add anything about the Commission's closed session process besides what I have reported?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. So let us proceed to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are now taking public comment on item number 11, updates with the labor negotiator, labor negotiations. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, so let us proceed to a vote whether to meet in closed session under California Government Code Section 54957.6 and Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.10E to discuss labor negotiation. By Commissioner Lang,
Seconded.
seconded by Commissioner Finlaf. Vote call, please.
A motion has been made and seconded to proceed into closed session. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang,
Aye.
Commissioner Finlaf,
Aye.
Chair Lee.
Aye.
With 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you. And we will now go to closed session on to discuss an update with labor negotiator, discussion and possible action. Second, employee organization, San Francisco Municipal Executive Association, and the anticipated issue and the negotiation status of meet and confer concerning the Ethics Commission's proposed June 2022 ballot measure and regulation amendments. And for those who are watching us online, an on-screen notice stating the Commission is meeting in closed session will remain on for the duration of our closed session. The audio and visuals will resume live once we reconvene in open session. We thank you for your patience. Thank you. We are now back in public session, and I want to thank the public, the members of the public, for your patience and engagement as we now resume our open session meeting. Do I have a motion whether or not to disclose any action taken or discussions held in closed session?
I move to not disclose the content of our closed session.
Okay, any second?
I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a roll call, please.
On the motion to disclose, or not to disclose, closed session deliberations, I will now call the roll. Commissioner Bush? Commissioner Bush? We'll come back to Commissioner Bush. Commissioner Flores-Fang?
Aye.
Commissioner Finliff?
Aye.
Chair Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Bush?
Okay, we have 3 votes.
So with
Commissioner Bush, excuse me, Commissioner Bush, I just noticed you showed up on camera. You are unmuted.
Vice Chair Bush, we were taking a roll on a motion not to disclose the closed session discussion. Do you want to vote on that? Commissioner Bush?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening on your end, Commissioner Bush, but you are unmuted on this end.
Commissioner Bush, can you hear us? We are taking a roll call. Okay, so I take that you are voting.
Commissioner Bush, if you could give us a thumbs up or thumbs down for yea or nay. On motion to not disclose? Okay,
No, okay, 3-1.
all right. And
3-1.
can we confirm if that's a yes or no? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Come on there.
Now, Commissioner Bush, can you signify your vote by either a thumbs up for a yes vote or thumbs down for a no vote?
No, meaning you do want to disclose the content of our closed session.
Perhaps we could also ask the city attorney for guidance as to if there are technology issues preventing us understanding commissioners' ability to vote, would that be requiring him to vote, or can he be excluded from the vote?
I think, commissioners, if Commissioner Bush is unable to vote on this item, there's a majority already affirmative for not disclosing. So I think if he's unable to vote, you can proceed with the action that you've taken, the 3 of you.
Commissioner Bush, did you hear the city attorney's advice or opinion on recording your vote? Because we're having some technical issues. We cannot hear you. The vote is 3-0. Okay, so you are no vote. Okay, you're no vote, right? Can you affirm that with a nod in the head or something?
Yeah, I'm finishing up.
Okay.
Okay, with 3 votes in the affirmative and one vote in the opposed.
Something that fell apart in there.
Hi, Commissioner Bush, we can hear you now. Can you hear me? This is Ronald.
Thank you.
One more try, just to be fair.
Commissioner Bush, can you hear me? This is Ronald. Hi. We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
He cannot hear us either.
Yeah, he can't, unfortunately, he can't
Okay,
hear us.
well, I think that, yeah, we're okay, yeah.
Okay. with 3 votes in the affirmative, and 1, I believe, opposed. Oh, didn't vote. Okay, sorry about that. So 3 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes opposed. The motion is approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now we are on agenda item number 12, which is public comment on, discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. Commissioners, I want to follow up on Commissioner Bush. You wanted to place on the next meeting's agenda on the behested payment issue. Do you still want to do that?
I can't hear it.
I'll just make that request on my behalf. Okay.
And I think specifically the question that Commissioner Bush raised was whether, I'm paraphrasing, I think from memory, the law governing disclosure of communications between certain parties in the city applies differently to nonprofit parties. I think roughly that was the question he raised.
Yeah.
So maybe just an explanation of what the law is on that issue.
We'll just put it on the agenda for next meeting. Okay? Any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are now taking public comment on item 12, discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there's no callers in the queue.
Thank you. Agenda item number 13, additional opportunities for public comments on matter not appearing on the agenda.
Members of the public who are already online and wish to provide public comment under item number 13 on matters not appearing on the agenda should now dial *3 or raise your hand in WebEx, if you have not already done so, to be added to the public comment line. Each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to provide public comment. Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there's callers in the queue. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 14, adjournment. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a fabulous weekend.